Hello everybody and welcome back to my custom chess position called What's Your Decision? This video is going to be a short video that's just going to cover branching variation from my last video on 1e4 theory expanded. I'm just going to go into one branch of the current main line, which I didn't cover in the last video. So if you haven't seen just the most recent video before this one, and please see that one first. But the main variation, the main line, there's lots of lines in all of these, but the main line goes something like this: knight d3, d6, bishop g4, bishop b5, f3, c6, knight hf2, d5, e5, knight ac7, and so on. And I've covered this one in depth, and the idea is that, well, both sides are going to develop and they're both going to protect the pawn that's the most important pawn to keep these pieces trapped in the corner, and the game's going to continue. But in this particular line, because black plays d6 and then bishop b5 and then c6, then d5, and then finally they eventually get d4, in which helps to reinforce the c3 pawn. Black has to spend several moves doing this. And so there's a variation where over here in move 4, bishop g4, if white wants to go directly for this c3 pawn, what white can do instead is they have the option of playing this move f3. And the idea behind this move is basically it's speeding up white's process by one move, but it's not developing this bishop. And because the process is sped up by one move, white is going to be able to develop, for example, their bishop to f2, then e1, and they're going to be able to take on c3 before black has a chance to protect the pawn. And this is perfectly playable for both sides. After bishop b5, bishop f2. And I guess if black really wants to try, they can play c6 and d5 as well. So I guess black can decide to just kind of copy white's setup, and then black is in time to defend. But over here, black also has the option of playing bishop b5 after bishop f2, c6, bishop e1, and yeah, here's the point in this position. And in this position, what we have is white is threatening to take off this c3 pawn. And so there's one move over here that black has, and the idea behind this move is basically if they were to take this knight, well, first of all, white's getting the queen and bishop out. However, they were about to sacrifice their bishop anyways, and this c3 pawn is very strong, so even if white's pieces are free, white is going to want to take this pawn. And so by taking this d3 knight, we actually split white's pawns and make it easier for black to promote pawns. So in this position, we take on d3 and then play b5, which is a theme in some of the most recent videos here. So white has a couple of options. The first is rook takes c3, and after rook takes c3, b takes c3, queen takes c3, b4, and queen c1. White's pieces are free, and white is going to try to attack black's king. And actually over here, white is threatening to take this a3 pawn, and black cannot take back because the bishop sees through this pawn and there's a pin. However, black will play b5 and allow white to take on a3 so that they can get their king to safety. Now they could take the queen, so white has to spend another move and move the queen. And after knight ac7, we get an interesting position that's playable for both sides. White's pieces are free, but black has brought their king to safety, and eventually in the future black could try to free their own queen and bishop, but they could also try to promote pawns, and white will try to use their extra material to go after black's king. and it's a playable position for both sides. If we go back over here, the other move is bishop takes c3, b takes c3, queen takes c3, b4, queen d2. Black tries to reinforce the center with the move d5. After here, there are a few different moves, but and really the game can kind of take any direction, but one of the main moves is king g4, which is just allowing h4. Maybe the king will go back and get away from any danger. b5 is played. And then there's a tactical line, for example, with f5. This is just an example. I think e5 would be a more natural move, but in a move like this, black could get a pawn to c3, which is generally not as good for white. So one move that the computer liked over here was f5, and after knight d4, rook takes c5, because the knight no longer protects c5. Knight c7, king h3, knight e8. So, and I guess white could try to defend this f6 pawn by playing e5, but black will be able to take the pawn back, and then the rook is attacked, so black doesn't have enough time to play f4 to defend this pawn. But this is just an example variation to show this opening. So king h3, knight e8, queen e3, black takes, and now the knight is defended by the rook, and taking back with the f pawn, knight takes f6, and black is getting their queen and bishop out as well, and it's a playable position for both sides. But going all the way back to this opening, if black, because black has this option over here after an early f3 instead of bishop g4, if black wants to keep things simple, they can not play bishop e5 if they don't want to, and they can just play c6 and then continue, and white doesn't have anything. So after d5, then white could just play e5, and normal development could ensue. And this is pretty much an even position, which is why in general white would prefer to play this move bishop g4 over f3, but f3 is just another variation that white can play if they so choose. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. So yeah, just a short video just to show one additional variation. Hope you enjoyed.